if you are sat at home, FOMO'd about not being at these big conferences, I won't say that you haven't missed out on a lot, but at the same time, it's the same thing over and over again. There's a main conference, side conferences, side events, and parties. And I guess this is how this is the recreation of the crypto world. But over a couple of them, you yourself will feel like not wanting to go to them as often as you. What is up? Welcome to another delayed, as usual, episode of Web3 Normies. Thanks to me and Prashant, who's been traveling. In today's news, Arsenal beat Barcelona 5-3. And I couldn't be over the moon. The revenge for 2006 is done. Before we even get into all the crypto things that we want to talk about, Prashant, what are your thoughts about this monumental moment?
Well, I hope this had happened on 17th May 2006 rather than 27th July 2023. But, it's okay. I'll take what I get. Good sign. But I don't read too much into pre-season. But it's good.
On this, man.
It's great, man. It's great. I mean, what's not to like? It's just that one thing I will say, though, is unlike a lot of our competitors this year, I think we have done pretty well in acquiring quickly and starting to get the team to gel together before the season starts. So hopefully we hit the ground running when the league starts in, I think, a couple of weeks.
And the VC/investment banker is back. Where is the sense of joy, bro? While we have you in that mood, bonjour, Prashant. How was Paris?
Bonjour. Paris was great. I was actually thinking it would be super hot because there is this El Nino effect ongoing in Europe, but mostly in Southern Europe, right? So I thought there'll be an impact, but it wasn't. It was very pleasant, which was great. And ETH CC was fabulous. Great conference. Wonderful panels. All the creme de la creme of the Modular side, Cosmos side as well were all there, and met some old friends whom I haven't met in a while. Yeah, and I mean, can't complain. It was great. Already thinking of booking tickets for next year.
Wow, that good. Huh? Yeah, man. I feel like 2017 to 19 bear market crypto conferences are not the same as this. 10,000 people came to ETH Paris. I was like, bear market, what? Where is all this money coming from?
Yeah, no semblance of bear market. A lot of announcements were made. A lot of interesting updates were given, right? And newer things are also coming out. Didn't at all feel like a bear market on the ground.
Yeah, no 2022-23 conference feels like a bear market conference anymore. Everybody seems to be happy. Everybody comes out in the numbers and, bigger calls, already announcing 2024, which clearly means that they have the budgets to do it, which is pretty interesting.
I just don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing,
Yeah.
Some sort of knockoff and eating humble pie, humility, sets you up well for the next cycle. This time, I don't think that is happening right now.
As the founder of your fund says, there isn't blood on the street yet. So,
yes, that is very true, actually.
Yeah. So it makes me believe that we are not actually in a bear market. But anyways, coming to the conference itself, right? So how would you say, what were maybe the 3 or 4 things that really stood out to you in this conference? What really caught your attention?
In terms of trends, right? So I mean, obviously, this was a very ethereum and therefore modular architecture specific event. So I would say one of the key things therefore that came out was all the trends around modular architecture, right? So there was a lot of focus on data availability. So there was Celestia, Avail, Eigenlayer, etc., all kind of pitching their stack, part of the stack. Then there was a lot of focus on sequencers as well. Shared sequencers obviously is a theme. So you had your entire Astria, Roll Kit, and Espresso, right? All these guys also going into detail of how they want to kind of go about technically decentralizing the entire rollup architecture. And then a rollup as a service was also a very prevailing theme over there. So all of these within the modular stack itself, right? So I would call this like one theme, modular stack, and these things within that. Then, of course, the second theme, which still keeps buzzing around my ear like a bee, is ZK. Heard it more than I would have liked in also certain contexts where I did not even understand why they were being mentioned. But ZK definitely is a prevailing theme, and a lot of good activity is happening. I thought there'd be more around ZK bridging that maybe I didn't come across because there was a lot going on, but I didn't see that. But ZK in specific to scaling and privacy was mentioned a lot, and seemed to be moving in the right direction. One thing I did notice on the ZK EVM side, especially, was a lot of people were praising Polygon for their ZK EVM, and also mentioned that this is turning out to be better tech than ZK Sync, which I just particularly wanted to point out because usually Polygon is seen as this BD machine, but the ZK EVM is being well thought of in the overall ecosystem, right? Which I think is a great outcome for them. Then
like 100 million staked on the chain as well recently. So it seems there are good notes coming out of the Polygon camp over the last couple of weeks.
I think it would have been much higher. The only problem they've had is their token is already live, whereas ZK Sync, etc., is not. So all these airdrop farmers probably focus on the other chains where they can get free tokens, right? That's maybe the only that I think is a big player in this. The third trend I would say is what I'm really fascinated by, or I think that's when you said what's lingering post conference, and something I want to go deeper into is autonomous worlds. This is basically everything that is being built by Lattice, the Mud engine, Argus with their World engine, Keystone by Curio Research, and all these guys, right? This is effectively decentralizing the entire gaming stack, right? And you building it up as a roll up, and then giving a lot more autonomous control at various levels of the stack, right from your user interface to your gameplay logic, and all the way to interoperability between shards within the same chain as well. So this I have to confess, I mean, rest of it, I kind of have like a decent hang of, but this is something I think I will need to go a lot more deeper into, and therefore that's kind of lingering in my mind a lot more. I didn't expect it to kind of come out so much on ETH in an ETH CC conference, but because they're all approaching it from a roll-up standpoint, I think that's why it made sense to include them. Particularly within that, Argus's founder Scott, who was also the co-creator of Dark Forest, brilliant guy. I think he has this aura and like this way of explaining things around him, which puts him. I think Vitalik is what he is to Ethereum. I think this guy is what it is to autonomous worlds, right? And full clarity. The key takeaway for me from everything on autonomous worlds, and I kind of particularly ask them these pointed questions, is who are they particularly catering to? And we would always think from like our conference, our discussions, and also from our podcast that how do we bring the average gamer into Web3 gaming, right? And these guys are not focused at that at all. They are like, we are only focused on the crypto gamers, right? And the kind of people who are who play Dark Forest, not the type probably who play Axie just yet, but the type who play Dark Forest, more strategy driven, are very much into crypto gaming because of the ethos that it brings along. Maybe it's a small number now, but that's what we are catering to, right? And that was kind of an eye-opener for me, that a lot of funding is going behind something like that, even though the market for that today is tiny, right? So that I thought was like a key takeaway there.
Did you kind of dwell deeper into why though? Because from a traditional venture standpoint, it's like, okay, small market, what are you investing in? What was their reasoning?
So their reasoning was multifold, right? One is that they think this is what it is today in terms of it being small, but they anticipate this getting much bigger as the stack becomes more abstracted, and more and more people start believing in decentralization as a theme. Come here, and then they play games which are also attractive, right? They don't deny the fact that the game needs to be good, but they don't want to shy away from making it entirely on chain, right? And they firmly believe that if you do something like that, then a Web3 fully on-chain game provides a lot more incentive for an average gamer, and they will come over a period of time. The second aspect is also they are people who have been playing, games like Dark Forest and the like, and they are already bought into this, right? So they don't as much, care who likes it or who doesn't. They are just building in a zone. From a venture standpoint, like I spoke to a couple of them as well, and they are also very. I mean, it's pretty much the same thought process. Mostly the primary one that the stack is getting ready now, and the as long as the game is appealing and the stack is ready, fully on-chain gaming will work, right? And it will work for like people who come into crypto, and there will be like it may not be as big as the standard gaming today, but it will get there, right? So it's just like a firm belief that this is going to happen in future. Also, they're all mostly focused on web-based gaming right now. They're not as focused on mobile gaming either, right? So that was also another interesting aspect, because most of the gaming today outside of console gaming is happening on mobile, right? So it's kind of like very, I would say, unintuitive in terms of how they are thinking. And I mean, I think they're still far, far off from any reasonable success, but they are just in that zone of like moving in that direction. I'm
Got
yet
it.
to believe. I'm yet to believe. I mean, my point here is that this is how that entire autonomous world section of the conference turned out, and that was my inference out of it. I don't know if I've yet bought into it.
Kind of flies into the face of the first thing that we ever said in the first episodes of Normie, that Web3 gaming is dishonest. And here we are in the middle of 2023 with autonomous worlds. But no, really interesting to see that went on. Did you have a chance to go to the hackathon itself? And did you
No,
see some interesting stuff there?
no, I couldn't get to the hackathon at all. Between all the meetings, the only place I actually attended a lot of these talks was at the Modular Summit, which was arranged by Maven 11 and Celestia. That's the only time I got time to spend, a few good hours listening to some of these panels, and after that, speaking to the people who are, giving those talks as well. In the main conference, in the hackathon part, I didn't really get much time to go there.
Nice. What was the Modular Summit like, right? Like, yeah, I remember before going, you were like, that's like one proper geek fest that you have to be a part of. Did it live up to the hype?
I would say so, yeah. So I think any VC, if it's like pure Web3 VC and like on top of like whatever has been developing over the last 6 months or 9 months, you would have seen a bunch of projects coming to your plate, right? All the way across the stack of the modular stack. And this Modular Summit, I would say, was bringing all those names together for talks and like for panels, etc. So which is why, and it gets very highly charged from a technical standpoint, right? So so I mean, I was it's just like I've seen so many decks, and then I've spoken to so many of these teams. So just to be there in person, listening to them and like understanding how they're looking at the next phase of development is was actually quite cool, I would say. Having said that, if you're an average Web3 person and have not been following for the last 6 to 9 months, most of what was spoken at the Modular Summit will probably turn out to be just jibber jabber for you, right? And I know a couple of people as well who are like, dude, what the f is going on? Nothing, none of this registers to me, right? So that's what I meant by it's an extreme geek fest as well. And I think we are at a point in that entire stack and infra where the marginal utility of additional infra intellectual shag is limited, right? So and I'm hoping for like a lot of these intelligent minds to start thinking out and saying how can we start building the applications which will eventually have to reside on top of this infra that we're building.
Oh, I see where this is going. Very interesting. Did you see any good applications? Did you see any good applications that that you came across? That stuff that like real world utility type stuff that you came across while at the conference?
No, it wasn't very application heavy in terms of what was being done there, but DSO is looking interesting. On the social side, Lens actually launched their V2 as well, and again, the numbers are not stacking up as you would see in like traditional social media, but it's in an upward trajectory. But DSO is getting a lot of attraction, and yeah, and gaming, of course, with autonomous worlds. I guess the ultimate thing that builds on top of them will be the games, which is more user focused. I think these are the two that I would say stood out more. DeFi and financial applications. I think like there's some work is going on, but there are not a lot of primitives that are coming out. Right, I saw a few players who are trying to again rinse repeat what has happened in the last 18 to 24 months, and there is this regulatory overhang that no one has an answer for when it comes to financial applications.
Oh well, same old then. Uh, Tell me about the audience, man. Like, what sort of people come to these conferences, and how do they come there? Especially for the average Joe in India who is looking at this conference in Paris that all my friend group seems to be going to. How does this happen? Who are these people?
So you see, I mean, again, usually other conferences, right? When you go, you just keep bumping into investors, right? There aren't a lot of people who are building or founders, etc. It's just investors speaking to each other, trying to jam, and then doing parties, and then there are some enterprise people, and maybe a few of these outlier founders who are there. Here, I think it was a good mix of a lot of builders, then a lot of founders, like the entire stack, founders across the stack were all there. Then good healthy mix of investors as well, all the way from A16Z to blockchain capital to whichever one you have to name. I think everyone would have been there pretty much, right, across US, Europe, and Asia as well. So outside it had the entire ecosystem. I didn't come across anyone who was there like oh, I'm just curious about Web3. I want to understand more. I don't think I saw anyone like that over there. It was very high on quality and very high on people as well, in terms of quality people as well over there. So yeah, that's what was there. Now, anyone who's listening who's like curious as to what was happening over there, right? The good thing with ETH CC and also the Modular Summit is the entire panel list, whoever has spoken about whatever, is all up on YouTube, right? So anyone can listen to all these talks, which was again one of the reasons why I also did not attend a lot of them, because you go there to kind of meet people and to kind of interact. And some of these panels, I have like a wish list of what I want to go through right now, something that I could not. So I will do that in over the weekend or at my leisure. But it's all available for anyone who wants to see or listen to what was spoken about.
You should share that list as well. I feel like some of our listeners may find that useful. So in the modularity side of things, right? Like Maven 11 seems to be the multi-coin of the modular world, where multi-coin took a non-EVM stance, and it looks like Maven 11's taken the modular stance. We see more companies follow that suit, that they say, no, modularity is the future. And secondly, in the modular world, what else exists outside of Celestia and Eigenlayer? Mantle, maybe, but yeah, minus the apart from those three, who's really there and what work is happening?
Yeah, okay. So just before this, so Maven 11, yeah, you're absolutely right. So they took I think one of the first modular stack by being the first check into Celestia, right? So I mean, I can't blame them to go on going to town saying that we were the first, and they do this modular summit as well along with Celestia, and fair play to them, right? I mean, you kind of like a lot of funds would love to be in that position, like Multicoin with Solana and Maven 11 with Celestia. So fair play. So the modular stack to me, right? I mean, it's basically when you look at you have two types of things, right? One is your monolithic chain, and then you have your modular chain. Both of them pretty much have to solve for four things across the stack. It is your execution, then your data availability, and then your consensus and settlement, right? So when you look at something like a Solana or even like Ethereum pre-rollups, all of this pretty much happens on the same chain, right? So you don't have like separate people doing pick and choose of various different things. So now Ethereum is moving more to the modular stack, wherein these four parts, or maybe three of them, mostly specific to execution, data availability, and settlement, or consensus, are separated out, right? When you come to execution, that is where you have all these rollups building up, right? You have all these L2s, either the optimistic rollups or your ZK rollups. They're all like focused on how do I increase the TPS, transactions per second, or like give better execution, right? And they're all focused on the execution layer primarily. Then you get to data availability, which is where again currently all of it happens mostly on Ethereum, but it's very expensive and also a bit archaic. So then people like Celestia have come out saying that we will abstract the data abstraction part, data availability part out of the stack and give people plug into my data availability part, right? So that is where you have your Celestia, Eigenlayer DA, Polygon Avail, or which is just Avail now, and maybe a couple others I'm forgetting as well, right? So that is that part. And then when you then come to your set consensus, that pretty much right now is your Ethereum, right? So all of this kind of set transacts at one place, data availability at one place, and then pretty much settles on your base layer, which is Ethereum. Now, if you keep double clicking on each of these, then there are like people who are building even further. So when you look at your entire rollup architecture of optimistic rollups and your ZK rollups, then all of these they're pretty much abstracting the execution away from your main layer. So now there is this entire discussion of how do you create some sort of like interoperability between these rollups as well, right? And because they're all like operating in their own silos. So then Optimism, for instance, came up with its own OP stack, saying that anyone who builds using the OP stack and does a roll up of their own within Optimism can all be very composable between each other, right? But then they operate with a very centralized sequencer now. Similarly, Arbitrum does its own as well, with I think what it's called as Orbit, I forget, Orbit, I think, yeah. And then ZK does its own, etc. Right? So they're all like, I think it's a good, maybe an illustration would be like a tree. You have your Optimism, and then it goes out into all these rollups. You have your Arbitrum, it goes into all of its own rollups, right? And then you have your Starknet that also just launched its own app chains feature at the conference. It also goes into all of these individual rollups. So each of these Optimism, Arbitrum, Starknet, all these individual rollups within them are all composable, right? Now, however, how does Optimism talk to Arbitrum? How does that talk to Starknet, right? That is still not solved, right? That is interoperability between multiple rollups. So there also, again, you need to kind of solve for now. And then, yeah, I think I'm kind of like going much deeper. But the final point I think here is, even within Optimism, if we take just one Optimism, for instance, and even though execution is scalable now, it's the sequencing of the transactions is very centralized, right? Because the sequencer that does the ordering of the transactions is still owned by Optimism technically. So now you have to decentralize the sequencer, right? So that we stay true to the ethos and we don't let a centralized party control the transaction ordering. So that is where your entire decentralized sequencing or shared sequencing and all that stuff comes in as well. So yeah, I mean, I think we can go on and on to an extent, but modular stack is all of this. At its face, I think it gives an extreme amount of optionality to any builder and also to founders, because it's like you have a toolkit now wherein I can bring the best execution layer, the best sequencer, and the best data availability that matches my use case and also my requirements, and then have this off the shelf and bring it in, and maybe all of them then eventually settles on Ethereum. So that optionality is there. Whereas in Solana, you just, for instance, you have to use whatever is given, right? That is there. The biggest downside to me from this entire modular architecture is the extreme fragmentation of liquidity across all of these various rollups, right? So unless we have like interoperability between various rollups, I struggle. I don't think we need as many, right? Eventually, it will be like a winner takes all, or 2 or 3 things, control most of it. I think that is the space we will end up in on the modular side.
That's one way of thinking about it. The other way of thinking about it is this new wave of DeFi equivalent, but from an infrastructure staking and interoperability standpoint, right? Like, so essentially where you earn your yield is in being able to add your commit liquidity to the infrastructure part itself. And the staking rewards are also then sent to you for just, instead of passively holding or trading or speculating on your ETH or any other native token, you can actually be staking it to the network, securing it better so that those transactions are more are done better. And I feel like that seems to be a very nice natural progression for what DeFi should have been, because there is no demand for crypto liquidity to buy a house or buy a car or anything like that. So that will
Yeah.
always be a problem. And at scale, what happened with the C5 platforms will consistently happen, will continue to happen until demand reaches the same level. But infrastructure,
Yeah.
on the other hand, makes a lot of sense. You're going to have transactions that need to be confirmed, and those chains will need liquidity to do that, if they're proof of stake chains, and then committing the spare retail ETH that is there to secure networks to earn yield seems like a much more Web3 native way of of earning money, as opposed to kind of putting it into a liquidity pool that is then used for an arbitrary crypto loan that is perhaps used to buy more crypto on the
Yeah.
outside. And you and I have been a close friend of the two of us is actually building a project for modular chains like this, which I'm excited to see. I hope more of these come
Yeah.
up.
And I think people don't have much patience for these random liquidity mining and yield farming gimmicks now. But since you brought up staking and securing, etc., so Eigenlayer, for instance, not for instance, sorry, Eigenlayer is probably the most talked about project even at the conference, I would say. Lido probably close second. Huh?
Really, the Eigenlayer was the most spoken about project, is it?
Yeah, I would say so, because it's at the cusp right now of being this new primitive that's come, and it can also kickstart a new phase of liquidity apportionment into that entire sector. And as and when the vaults opened up, I think they all got filled in within like a few hours, right? So there is that hype going on the other side, because it's not yet fully live. People are not yet sure how exactly it will perform, right? What type of projects will want to yeah, get security from Eigenlayer, how will the slashing work? Those are like certain known unknowns, right? So that's why it's at that very bubbly phase right now of having secured a lot of supply, but unsure where how much demand or what quality of demand comes in. So everyone is like super excited for it, but there is an element of cautious optimism around it as well.
Very interesting. I'm quite surprised that Eigenlayer uh, was the chain that was most spoken about there. Lido was next, is it? And why do you think that is?
No, Lido, I won't say it was next. It's just that there was a lot of discussion around it. And again, maybe I went seeking for these questions, and therefore I felt that these probably were most spoken about. I wouldn't say Lido was second. Now that I think about it, Eigenlayer, at least in my experience, was a lot more spoken about. Lido is kind of like I would say it's spoken about more in terms of like the entire concentration it has of the staking market within Ethereum, right? And how should one go about addressing it, right? And like people, I would say people are concerned as such. They still feel like Lido will do the right thing, and I think some proposal did come up overnight, if I'm not mistaken, on a dual governance sort of a model where anyone who's staked on Lido or has staked ETH also has a say on the governance, and it's not just the Lido holders, right? So I think that is kind of being resolved. But yeah, there was some chatter around this as well in terms of how does this get solved. Yeah.
Interesting. Anyway, I guess one reason why crypto markets on the whole had one renewal of interest and this bounce back. I had a normie mentor call me some time back and said that this Ripple ruling has been a smash in the face of the SEC. I don't see it the same way, but I think maybe we should get into that. So, Prash, I think you followed this quite a bit just before heading to ETH CC. What's all this about, and does this mean that crypto will not fall into the securities bracket that Gary Gensler wants to put it into? Like, tell the average normie about what the case is about and what the ruling was.
Yeah, just before I get in there, this is exciting about crypto, right? It's just been a week since that ruling came out, or maybe 10 days. When it did come out, I was like all over it. Since then, I went to this conference, came back, excited about newer things, and now this entire XRP Ripple thing feels like ages ago, right? That's how fast we move in crypto. And frankly, as you're asking me this question, that's how I'm feeling about this entire topic now, right?
Feels
Even
like
the market, I think, what?
it feels like it happened last year.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah, that's funny. But anyways, to spend some time on this. So basically, um, I won't come. I'll just give a bit of a background as to what has happened. So I think sometime in late 2020, SEC had alleged that Ripple failed to register XRP as a security before proceeding to raise some outrageous 1.4 billion worth of money on the back of token sales, right? So the key questions, I guess, that were coming out of it is that is XRP therefore a security, and did the sale of XRP constitute as an unregistered security offering? Now, why is this important? Is that if it is deemed to be an unregistered security offering, then technically, in the SEC's eyes, it is a fraud, right? And if it is, it's and therefore, as XRP, if it's deemed as a security, then you will have to do all the filings, and you will have to kind of go through this elaborate SEC process, and which is why a lot of the exchanges also delisted or did not list XRP until this got clear, right? And It's not like the exchanges were scared that XRP will be deemed as security, but if it is deemed as a security, then you should not be technically trading it on a crypto exchange. It should be trading technically on your Nasdaq, for instance, which has the license from the SEC. So this is what the whole story was about, right? And I think dragged on for like a good couple of years. And There was this big overhang on the market that what happens with XRP as a ruling will set the tone for the rest of the market. And Before this ruling came out, we also saw that certain other I think mostly POS coins were also deemed as securities, right? And Not deemed as securities, but were being like I'm struggling for the right word, but was like more being called at, or like were being shown could had the potential to be called as a security, right? Including a Polygon, Solana, Algorand, etc. And They also took a beating on the back of it and got delisted by a lot of exchanges. Now, the ruling came out, right? And It's not as slam dunk as most people have taken it as, that oh, that's it, XRP is not a security anymore, and therefore nothing in crypto is kind of construed as a security anymore, and therefore it's moon time again, right? I don't think it's that black and white yet, because there is a bit of nuance, right? And SEC can always appeal whatever has come out, because this did not come from the apex court. This came from a federal court, and that can always be appealed at a higher court, like in any other country, even in India, right? So that's where that ruling itself is. Now, specific to the ruling, there I think. Three things, I think, right? In secondary markets, and whatever is trading on exchanges has been deemed as not an investment contract, and which implies that it's not a security. So exchanges are clear winners, in that any secondary trading that happens on exchanges is not deemed as a security. And the main reason for this is that these trades happen on an order book, and you're not giving money to the organization for it to kind of use in its daily working capital, and you're not expecting for that money to go up in value. Now, again, I don't know how you can put two and two together there, but that's what the ruling says. The second part is that institutional sales that was done by the team to your venture capitalists or other people, ICOs, etc., those have been deemed as investment contracts, and therefore as unregistered security. And this is still a big discussion point, because what this means is, to me at least, it's not clear that what is the future of ICOs, IDOs, etc. Within US. Also, it's not clear to me that if this is seen as a precedent, then how do your venture capitals going forward invest in private sales of companies that are launching tokens? Because if those are being deemed as, if they have to follow the precedent of XRP and deemed as a security, then they have to go through your Reg A and Reg D filings, right? Those are very onerous. The only project I can think of that has done that is, I think, Stacks, if I'm not mistaken. And fair play to them, but I don't think any VC wants to go through that, right? So that's the second part. The third part is, at least from all of this, XRP, the token that is trading in the secondary markets today, is not deemed as a security, right? So so that's, I think, the key takeaways over here. There is still an amount of gray for institutional investors, VCs, private sales. That part is still not very clear at all. What is clear is that exchanges are in the green, and have all relisted XRP, and anything that's trading as tokens out there today in the secondary market is not a security, right? So that part is clear. But as I said, SEC can appeal this again, and it can still go through the entire process again. But it is a big slap on SEC's face, or egg on their face, whichever way you want to put this, because in the grand scheme of things, you would think that the regulator is kind of trying to has brought a case against a small asset class, which is pretty small in the grand scheme of things, and should therefore not have a lot of trouble. But I guess kudos to the jurisdiction, or like the judicial system in the US, to see through this in a very fair manner.
Nice, man. I'm surprised that Ripple wasn't the most talked about project at ETH CC.
Maybe it was in a lot of late night parties. Unfortunately, I didn't frequent a lot of them.
Oh, such a good boy you are, Prash. Like, why would you not go to these things, man? But yeah,
a couple of them, yes, but that took a taxi, man. And what I realized is, in a lot of these parties, you have like good conversations, but then surprisingly, most people don't seem to remember those conversations the next day.
nothing surprising about it, Prash. Just saying. but for anyone who's kind of FOMO riddled about going to these conferences, I've been, both Prash and I guess we've been doing conferences for a while now, and as a policy, at least in Builders Tribe, what I've taken is that I'm not traveling to conferences anymore. I'll go there if I have meetings, but no, it doesn't make sense to go to these places. Of course, having been to a few of them, it's a great experience, and if you get the chance to do it, you should definitely do it. But you get to meet a lot of interesting people face to face. Twitter accounts, you can put a face to it.
Yep.
That you follow, that actually share a lot of these things online. You can actually talk to them and kind of see them as people. And surprise, we're very different from what they sound on Twitter. Right? So that may come as an interesting surprise to a lot of you that do go and meet them. But know this, that it is not technically work if you don't have anything to sell. If you're going to these conferences, as just from a knowledge sharing standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to show up in these places and make relationships and that sort of stuff. So if you are sat at home FOMO'd about not being at these big conferences, I won't say that you haven't missed out on a lot, but at the same time, it's the same thing over and over again. There's a main conference, side conferences, side events, and parties. And I guess this is how this is the recreation of the crypto world. But over a couple of them, you yourself will feel like not wanting to go to them as often as you do. So just some silver lining for those who may have not gone to this conference. Or you could just tune into the Normies, and one of us would have been there, or we would know somebody who was there, and we will bring them on the podcast and kind of take all the learnings from that anyway. Anyway, that was a short and sweet podcast about ETH CC and Ripple and many other things. I hope you learned a bunch of stuff, and we will be back in another podcast with another guest, maybe on the modular chain side of things. It looks like that's where the wind is blowing right now with respect to crypto.
Yeah.
Learning more it, and we'll bring that to you guys to in an episode not too far away from now. Until then, signing out.